Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Let's go to work. All right. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the only male cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. You know I want to hear from you. All right. So opening statements from Darrell's attorney and Cal's attorney. So first and foremost, just be advised that the transcripts are not being provided same day. So there's going to be like a day lag provided same day.
Hold on.
Yeah. So there's going to be a day lag on that. So just bear in mind. And I've teamed up with Just Jazz Only on her YouTube channel. Let me see something here. Because we are actually asking, let me see if I can find that. Yeah. So we're asking everybody who, supports our channels in whatever capacity to send us some donations, if you would, so that we can make sure that we're getting the transcripts on a daily basis. And as y'all know, these transcripts are actually higher priced for this particular trial. So whatever you can do, we appreciate it. We're also giving away the transcripts to individuals who donate. That doesn't mean a one-time donation gets you the whole trial, because that's not feasible. But the day that you donate, we're going to make sure you get those transcripts if you want them. All you have to do is just let us know that. So the Cash App is Damos R9. That'll get you directly to Just Jazz Cash App. And then I have my Cash App streaming on the ticker below. So whichever you're most comfortable with doing, we just do ask for your help so we can stay on top of this thing. And if you are a content creator, by all means, you can donate as well. And we're going to share. So if you have any questions about that, reach out. So let's get into this thing, because that's what y'all pulled up for. Let me just shout out the chat real quick. Shout out to Miss Likey in the house. Thanks for pulling up. Appreciate you so much. Those of you in the bushes, be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe if you haven't already. And replay gang, leave a comment, because I want to hear from you. All right, let's get into this. All right, so the judge, of course, starts off with good morning, and everybody says, yeah, good morning, Judge. The judge asks everyone to be seated, and here's what he says. Things are never intended to be easy. Juror number 5 phoned in this morning and said she's having leg problems. She can't sit and she can't walk and is asked to be excused. The judge says, I didn't see much choice, so we excused her, and she's replaced by juror number 71, which is alternate number 1. 2 other jurors are on the L, and that train is running late. So Darrell's attorney speaks up and says, well, we're off to a great start. And the judge says, well, it's not as bad as the last trial I had where we lost 2 jurors. We had 9, lost 2 the first weekend, left us 7 for the rest of the trial. The judge further goes on to say that there was a motion filed overnight by Milton Brown. I thought about it, and just a clarification, the clarification would be that the testimony about obtaining hotel rooms for non-indicted people, the testimony would be limited to, without naming him, just an employee. And so June Brown's attorney says, perfect, Judge, thank you. The court says, now Ms. Bonjean. Bonjean says, good morning, Judge. I'm sorry, I do have something. And the judge asked Bonjean, could you remove your face mask? And so he also says, whenever you're addressing me, because, well, never mind. I have difficulty understanding people when they talk to me through their, go ahead, excuse me. So Bongine comes in and she says, "Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to place an objection on the record to the government's use of pseudonyms for non-victims or non-minors. It occurred to me last night as I was preparing for today that there are parents of one of the minors who are heavy pseudonyms associated with them. And frankly, I don't know what the authority is for that or why. I don't think there is any. But beyond that, it's going to make some cross-examination difficult because I may want to question law enforcement or different witnesses. And so I'm going to be using a name that won't be recognizable to these people. And I guess they could have a code up there with them as well. But it's just, I understand for the complaining witnesses, the minors, the victims, but I don't get why we need to further complicate it for witnesses who were never minors. They're just witnesses. And so the judge asks the government, how do y'all feel about that? And then the NDIL representative, the AUSA, if you will, she says, Your Honor, this issue was briefed weeks ago. There was no objection at that time. Your Honor concluded that the pseudonyms were appropriate in this case. In particular, the parents that defendants are talking about are the parents of minor one. And identifying them, as the government wrote in its brief, would identify minor one. And so those individuals would probably be using a pseudonym as well. And then the judge jumps in and says, is that the only one, the parents of minor one? And the AUSA says, yes, Your Honor. The judge says, okay, I think I know you don't want to live with that, but we can live with that. Bongine says, well, I could theoretically live with it, but I just don't know how to do a cross-examination. So if I could ask a detective, did you speak to, and then the judge jumps in and says, right now the ruling will stand. If you want to file a motion to reconsider, explain exactly what you see the problem, and because I don't, again, apparently it wasn't raised at the time of the motion in limine. So if you express, and then we'll get a response from the government. In the interim, we'll just continue the way it is. So Darrell's attorney jumps in and he says, Judge, on behalf of Darrell, I tend to agree with counsel for Mr. Kelly. Insofar as we cross-examine the witnesses, we're going to have to call these people something. I mean, we're going to ask law enforcement officers for sure questions about interactions that they had with the parents of minor one. And then the AUSA jumps in and says, Your Honor, we had issued and Darrell's attorney jumps in and says, I'm still talking. And the judge says, wait, you can't both talk at once. Oh. So Darrell's attorney goes on and says, or the judge goes on, he goes, Mr. Brindley is on and the AUSA apologizes. So he goes on and says, and so I think that if the officers don't know what I'm talking about, then we're going to have to stop so somebody can tell them what I'm talking about. And I just wanted that to be flagged for the court. We'll do it, but if it becomes a problem or becomes an issue, and the judge says, well, then Darrell's attorney says, we're going to have to stop and finish. All right. So the judge goes on and says, well, the problem wasn't, as I recall, no problem was specifically set forth. So I'm having a little difficulty understanding how the problem will play out particularly. So I think if you can file a joint brief or something, and then I'll have the government respond to it. And then I don't think it will raise a problem for the opening statements. Darrell's attorney says, no. The court says, so we have time to do that. The AUSA jumps in and says, that's fine, Your Honor. That's fine with the government. We'll respond to that. And for the record, the government produced last week the list of pseudonyms that are going to be used, and the witnesses are aware of them as well, as we've presented them with them. And again, we're talking about two pseudonyms that are at issue here, two parents' names. The judge says, all right. And then he asks, is Mel still here? So I thought my name was up in there. Okay. I said, is Mel still here? Do we hear anything from the jurors? So they're saying about 30 minutes. Bongine makes a joke, telling him how time to write a motion, I guess, blah, blah, blah. Let me scoot all the way down here and get right to They bring the jury in, and the clerks all rise. And here we go. Please be seated. Good morning, members of the jury. As you know, we've completed jury selection yesterday, so the first order of business is going to be the opening statements by the lawyers. The opening statements are the opportunity for the lawyers to explain in advance what they expect the evidence to show during the course of the trial. They're intended to be helpful to you because evidence doesn't always come in a particularly logical or chronological order. So it's helpful to have this overview. The one word of caution is that the lawyers say, since they are not witnesses and they are not under oath, what they say is not evidence. They can only predict to you what they believe the evidence will show. At the conclusion of the case, if you determine that whatever the lawyer said was not what you remembered in the evidence, then of course you follow what your memory is as to the evidence and not what the lawyers say. Because the government has the burden of proof, the government goes first in the opening statements, and they will go first in every other aspect of the trial, including presentation of evidence. After the government gives its opening, then you will hear the opening for the three defendants, which will be separate. So at this time, the government may present its opening statement. Now, the person for the opening statement is Mr. Julian, and he says, "Good morning. The defendant, Robert Kelly, had sex with multiple children. He made videotapes of himself having sex with children. And these two defendants, Darrell McDavid and Milton Brown, knew about it. Darrell McDavid and Milton Brown helped Kelly cover it up and keep it a secret. Back in the 1990s, Kelly became a superstar musician, performing under the stage name R. Kelly. By 1999, he had already been nominated for 12 Grammy Awards and had won 3 of them. The world saw Kelly perform one of his most popular songs, I Believe I Can Fly, at the Grammy Awards. And Darrell and Brown, they helped Kelly manage his music career. Darrell was Kelly's business manager and accountant. Brown was Kelly's assistant. The trio of Kelly, McDavid, and Brown were close. You're going to learn that McDavid and Brown were part of Kelly's tight-knit inner circle. This is Kelly's public side I've been talking to you about. But Kelly had another side, a hidden side, a dark side that he, along with the help of Darrell and Brown, did not allow the world to see. For years, starting at about 1996 and continuing through 2001, Kelly repeatedly had sex with children, young girls, when they were 14, 15, and 16 years old. Multiple girls, hundreds of times. Girls that are young minors. You're going to learn that it was a crime for Kelly to videotape himself having sex with minors. Sometimes Kelly would record himself having sex with just one minor girl at a time. Other times, he recorded himself having sex with multiple young girls at the same time, or one young girl and an adult woman at the same time. Threesomes. You'll learn that Kelly kept these videotapes close because if the world found out that he was having sex with children, he'd get in a lot of trouble and it would ruin his career. Kelly and Darrell kept the women and girls quiet through threats and money payments. But when one of the videotapes depicting Kelly having sex with one young girl multiple times across multiple scenes went missing, Kelly, Brown, and McDavid went through extraordinary lengths to get those videos back. This trial is about Kelly's hidden side, him having sex with children and recording it. His repeated sex acts with 5 specific minor girls, and all 3 of these defendants' efforts to keep that from becoming known. The charges in this case are based on that conduct. Child pornography charges based on Kelly having sex with children and recording it. Conspiracy charges based on each of these defendants' efforts to keep it from becoming known that Kelly was having sex with children and to get those videotapes back. And child exploitation offenses. And at the end of this case, based on evidence you're going to hear, which I'm going to summarize for you now, you'll have what you need to find each of these 3 defendants guilty beyond a reasonable doubt as to each of the charges in the indictment. Now, I just told you a moment ago that there are 5 minor victims you're going to hear about during this trial. The minor victims and any of their relatives that testify, they may use a different name than their real name. I want to tell you about one of those victims now, and we're going to call her Jane during this trial. It's not her real name. Jane grew up in Oak Park, and she was a fan of R. Kelly. In about 1993, while Jane was still very young, Jane was part of a musical group that traveled and performed internationally. You see, Jane comes from a musical family. Her father played the guitar. For a long time, including in the 1990s to the 2000s, Jane's father played the guitar for Kelly. Jane's aunt was a singer. Jane thought of her aunt, who was about 10 years older than she is, as her best friend. Jane's aunt was a recording artist who also had a signed contract also to Mr. Kelly in the 1990s. Jane met Kelly in about 1996 or 1997 when Jane was 12 or 13 years old. Jane's aunt, the one that I just told you about, introduced Jane to Kelly. Now, Jane told Kelly about her musical pursuits during the first meeting, and shortly after that, she began spending time with Kelly and with her aunt in a recording studio. When Jane was 13, Jane asked Kelly to be her godfather. Her aunt, the one that I've been telling you about, suggested that she do so. Now, Jane thought that having a closer relationship with Kelly would advance her musical career. Not long after that conversation, Kelly pursued Jane sexually. Kelly never became Jane's godfather in a religious sense, but being Jane's quote-unquote godfather provided Kelly cover for spending time with Jane, talking to Jane on the phone, spending time with Jane in the studio, and having Jane over to his house over the weekend to watch his kids. We learned that Jane babysat for Kelly. You see, Kelly was a married man at the time with his own children. When Jane was 13 or 14 years old, Kelly was 31 years old. Kelly took Jane's virginity. Kelly taught Jane what to do to please Kelly sexually. Jane didn't have any experience with sex before she met Kelly. Kelly told Jane how to position her body during sex or how to touch Kelly during sex and what he wanted Jane to say to him during sex. One of those things that Kelly and Jane discussed while they were having sex was Jane's age. He learned that Kelly would talk to Jane in very explicit ways about Jane's body and certain parts of Jane's body being 14 years old while the two of them were having sex. Let me pause here and I'll come back to that in a minute. All right, so this prosecutor goes on to say, I mentioned a couple of minutes ago that Kelly recorded videos of himself having sex with children. Now, this is back in the 1990s before iPhones and Androids. Kelly was using a camcorder to record himself having sex with children. He was making VHS tapes. You play VHS tapes in the VCR. Kelly recorded himself having sex with Jane in 4 different scenes. And during this trial, we're going to be referring to those 4 different scenes as video 1, 2, and 3, and video 4. Video 1, video 2, video 3, and video 4 depict Kelly having sex with Jane while Jane is a young teenager and Kelly is in his early 30s. Video 4 depicts Kelly having sex with Jane and an adult woman. I'll talk to you about that adult woman in a few minutes. But due to the nature of the charges in this case, we're going to have to show you those videos of Kelly having sex with Jane. The videos are graphic, but they show what Kelly did to Jane. You're going to see Kelly telling Jane how to position her body for the video camera and what to say for the video camera. You're going to see Kelly setting up the video camera. You're going to see Kelly adjusting the video camera and checking the shot when you're watching these videos. You're going to see Kelly urinate on Jane. You're going to see Kelly urinate on Jane's face. You're going to hear Kelly talk about Jane's anatomy being 14 years old in Kelly's own words. For example, on video 2, you're going to hear Kelly instruct Jane to talk to Kelly about her 14-year-old genitalia in a very graphic terms while Kelly is performing oral sex on Jane. Ooh. And you're going to see and hear Jane. And you're going to see and hear Jane that she complied, repeating Kelly's command over and over. And we're going to let you hear the exact words that Kelly said to Jane and that Jane repeated when you watch video 2. On video 3, a different scene, you'll hear Kelly refer to Jane's butt, and I'm quoting him as a 14-year-old ass. Kelly was in his 30s. Now, as you listen to the dialogue in these videos, keep an ear out for just how many times Kelly and Jane discuss Jane's age as being 14 years old on video 2 and video 3. You're also going to hear from Jane about the videos. Jane's going to testify. Jane's going to tell you that it's her on the videos. She's going to tell you that it's Kelly on the videos having sex with her. She's going to tell you how old she was when those videos were recorded. Kelly had sex with Jane, you'll learn, hundreds of times in a variety of places, including at Kelly's home, in a recording studio, on Kelly's tour buses, and at hotels. Now, let me take a quick break here and check these comments real quick. And I want y'all to let me know if y'all have any questions. Miss Lackey in the house. Thank you, Miss Lackey. A girl, Rugidia, I think I'm pronouncing your name. Thanks for pulling up. Appreciate you so much. Lovable Leo, thanks for pulling up. Appreciate y'all. And Melissa Renee, thanks for pulling up, y'all. Y'all share the show. Hit the like button if you can. Subscribe if you haven't already. All right. Okay, let's keep it moving. Kelly instructed Jane to keep their sexual relationship a secret and to lie if anybody asked her about it. Kelly instructed Jane to tell people that Kelly was just her godfather and act very offended if anybody suggested that there was anything sexual going on between the two of them. Kelly told Jane that the two of them would get into a lot of trouble if anyone found out that Kelly was having sex with Jane. In fact, you'll learn that in December of 2000, the police were investigating whether Kelly was having a sexual relationship with Jane. And based on Kelly's instructions, you'll learn Jane lied to the police and denied that Kelly was having sex with her when the police asked her about it. Kelly had sex with Jane's friends, too. One of her friends that Kelly had sex with is Brittany. It's not her real name. Brittany was 16 years old. Another one of Jane's friends that Kelly had sex with is Pinky. It's also not her real name. Pinky was 14 or 15 years old. Kelly told Jane that he wanted to meet her friends and taught Jane how to have threesomes with Kelly and other young girls. Jane was afraid to tell Kelly that she didn't want to participate in these threesomes with Kelly and the other teenage girls, but you'll learn that Jane gave into whatever Kelly asked for, including these threesomes. And unfortunately, Jane's story, it's not an outlier in Kelly's hidden world. The tactics that Kells used with Jane are the same tactics that he used with Pinky and Brittany, who I just mentioned to you, who you'll hear about during this trial. They're the same tactics that Kelly used with Tracy and Nia, two other minor victims you'll hear from during this trial. Tracy was 16 years old. Nia was 15 years old. That's 5 minor victims in total. The victims will tell you that they were inexperienced and they were starstruck when they met Kelly. They'll tell you how Kelly isolated them and exerted pressure on them to cave into his sexual demands, and how Kelly asked him to keep their hidden sexual episodes with Kelly a secret. Now, here's where the trouble starts brewing for Kelly, McDavid, and Brown. In late 2001 or early 2002, Kelly, McDavid, and Brown learned that Video 1 had leaked to the public. Jane learned that her aunt had seen Video 1 depicting Kelly having sex with Jane, the same aunt that I've been talking to you about. Jane also became aware that other members of her family, including her parents, were discussing the existence of Video 1, but they hadn't seen it yet. In early 2002, Kelly and McDavid met with Jane and her parents to discuss Video 1 and the allegations that Jane was having sex with, or Kelly was having sex with Jane. Kelly told Jane and her family that they were either with him or they were against him, and that if they were with him, they would get through this situation together. But if they were against him, Kelly told them he didn't know what would happen. McDavid and Kelly told Jane and her family to leave Chicago because Video One was about to become a major news story. McDavid and Kelly told Jane and her family to avoid contact with law enforcement about Video One and also to avoid the media. Jane's mother, and we'll call her Susan, is going to tell you that she feared for her family's physical safety during this time. McDavid and Kelly then sent Jane, Susan, and Jane's father out of the country for roughly 1 month, all expenses paid by McDavid and Kelly to hide Jane and her family away from law enforcement and the media. You'll learn that law enforcement was looking for Jane during this time. Jane was afraid that Kelly was going to get in trouble for having sex with her. Jane told her parents that they would lose her. They would lose Jane if she didn't give in to McDavid, Kelly, and any other co-conspirator demands to deny that it was Jane and Kelly having sex on Video One. You'll learn that Jane told her parents that she was suicidal while they were out of the country on this trip. Jane wanted her parents to side with Kelly. Jane believed that if her family went along with Kelly and McDavid's plan to cover up Kelly's involvement in making Video One, that everything would be okay. You'll also learn that Jane got a tattoo while she and her parents were out of the country. The tattoo was Kelly's name, Robert, inside of a heart. When Jane and her parents arrived back in America, fearful of her family's safety and fearful that they would lose their daughter, they agreed to be on Kelly's side. They agreed to cover up Kelly's creation of child pornography and Kelly having sex with Jane. Now, if y'all don't mind, I just want to add this in here. How is a 13 or 14-year-old getting a tattoo and the parents are okay with that? I'm just wondering about that. You're a minor and getting a tattoo. Maybe Bonjean will be addressing that. They agreed to cover up Kelly's creation of child pornography and Kelly having sex with Jane. The agreement to keep Kelly's hidden side a secret continued to grow, adding more and more people to do more and more in furtherance of that agreement to conceal the child pornography and Kelly's sex with Jane. For example, you'll learn that when Jane and her family got back in America, Brown took Jane to get that tattoo of Kelly's name covered up. Jane had shown this tattoo to Kelly, but Kelly told Jane in response that Jane had to get that tattoo covered up. And you'll learn that when Brown took Jane to get that tattoo covered up, Brown didn't take Jane to a tattoo parlor. Brown took Jane to somebody's house to get that tattoo covered up. Jane also wore a silver cross necklace in Video One, and Jane is wearing that same silver cross necklace in her passport photo at the time. And when Jane's family came back to America, McDavid discussed with Jane how they needed to get rid of the necklace because that necklace could tie Jane to Video One. Kelly, McDavid, and Brown, they knew that law enforcement was investigating whether Kelly had videotaped himself having sex with Jane. McDavid instructed Jane's family to lie under oath in a Cook County grand jury that had begun to investigate Kelly for child pornography and Video One specifically. The Cook County State's Attorney's Office subpoenaed Jane and Jane's parents to appear before that grand jury, and McDavid instructed Jane and her family to deny that Jane was the girl in Video One and deny that it was Kelly in Video One. Jane denied that it was her in Video One, even though she knew that it was her and Kelly in Video One. Jane's parents, they denied it was Jane and Kelly on Video One, even though they knew it was Jane and Kelly having sex on Video One. You'll learn that shortly after Jane and her family arrived back in the United States, that both of her parents lost their jobs because of the public scrutiny surrounding whether Kelly was having sex with Jane. And after Jane's father, in response, began to play guitar for Kelly on a more and more regular basis to support the family, Kelly became Jane's family's only source of income. In 2002, Kelly was indicted by the state of Illinois in Cook County for child pornography in Video 1. Despite the defendant's efforts to cover up Kelly's involvement in creating child pornography. But Video 2, Video 3, and Video 4, those are still a problem for Kelly. And I'm going now to spend the next couple of minutes talking to you about Video 2, Video 3, and Video 4, how they became a problem for Kelly. Now, this is crazy because some of y'all have already heard on the social media sites that there actually isn't a Video 4. So he's already opening up this with his opening statement. Shout out to April Showers. He's already opening up with misinformation. So that's interesting. That's already letting us know that they still don't have their case tight. All right. But in Video 2, Video 3, and Video 4, those are still a problem for Kelly. And I'm now going to spend the next couple of minutes talking to you about how Video 2, 3, and 4 became a problem for Kelly. In 2001, another one of Kelly's girlfriends was temporarily left alone with Kel's collection of child pornography. Her name is Lisa. Lisa, she's the adult woman that I mentioned to you a couple minutes ago. Lisa had engaged with threesomes with Kelly and Jane. Video 4, which I mentioned to you, depicts a threesome of Kelly and Lisa having sex with Jane. Lisa was 18 years old when she met Kelly in 1998, and Lisa, she had just crossed the age threshold into being an adult when she met Kelly. The first time Lisa and Jane had a threesome with Kelly, Kelly told Lisa that Jane was older than Jane actually was. Kelly told Lisa that Jane was 16 at the time. Jane wasn't 16, Jane was 14. Kelly recorded the three of them having sex, and that's Video 4. And back in 2001, when Lisa was left alone with Kelly's collection of child pornography, Lisa didn't want Kelly to have Video 4 anymore. Remember, we're talking about VHS tapes. So Lisa, she popped those child pornography tapes into the VCR, and she went through them one by one until she found Video 4. Lisa, she kept Video 4 when she found it. That physical tape depicting Kelly and Lisa having sex with Jane in Video 4, that tape also contained Video 2 and Video 3. But Lisa, she didn't believe that she could keep that tape with Video 4, Video 3, and Video 2 with her. You see, Kelly controlled Lisa's living environment. Lisa had met Kelly in Atlanta, and when she visited Kelly in Chicago and told Kelly that she had to leave to go back to Atlanta to work, Kelly offered to pay Lisa whatever she would make at her job to stay with Kelly instead. And she did. Kelly paid for Lisa to live in hotels and sometimes have Lisa stay in the recording studio with Kelly overnight when she was here in Chicago. That's why Lisa didn't want to keep that tape with her. Lisa was afraid that Kelly would find her and beat her for taking it. Oh my God, for real. Kelly had rules, you'll learn, that Lisa had to live by. Lisa had to call Kelly daddy whenever Lisa addressed Kelly. Lisa wasn't allowed to speak to other men, look at other men, or otherwise engage with other men. And if Lisa did, Kelly would physically abuse Lisa. Sometimes Kelly would control whether Lisa could eat. So Lisa didn't want to get abused for taking Video 4. She didn't want to get abused for taking Video 4 from Kelly's child pornography collection. Lisa mailed that tape containing Video 2, Video 3, and Video 4 to a friend in Kansas City for safekeeping. You're going to hear from that friend, Keith Morrell, during this trial, and you're going to hear from Lisa also. All right, I'm moving over here to the chat real quick, y'all. See what y'all talking about. Let's see. Hey, Melissa girl, thanks for pulling up. Appreciate you. Let me see. Miss AP in the house. Hey, Mel, blessings on. Hey, chat, I'm listening, but I'm wondering the same thing. Come on. Can't talk, I'm busy. Ain't no problem. We just getting it read. Shannon Lewis in the house. Thanks for pulling up, y'all. Yeah, so we gonna keep it moving. Let me see. All right. So Lisa, She left Kelly shortly after mailing the tape to Keith, but Lisa, she kept in contact with Kelly periodically after leaving for a number of years. Neither Kelly, Brown, or McDavid confronted Lisa about the fact that Video 2, Video 3, and Video 4 were missing. Even though they didn't confront her, they all knew that the tape was gone. All three of these defendants were taking steps to get Video 2, Video 3, and Video 4 back. And I'm going to talk to you about some of those steps now. For example, in 2001, Kelly reached out to a man named Chuck Freeman. You're going to hear from Chuck Freeman during this trial. Freeman is one of Kelly's associates. Kelly asked Freeman to come to Chicago from Kansas City. And when Freeman arrived, he met with Kelly, Brown, and McDavid. Brown and McDavid told Freeman during that meeting that someone Freeman knew stole a tape from Kelly, that the three of them wanted that tape back, and that they were willing to pay. Freeman used to be the manager of a music group that included Lisa's friend Keith. They offered Freeman a large sum of money to get the tape back. You're going to learn that Freeman entered into a written contract on August 21st, 2001, with Kelly's private investigator to pay Freeman up to $140,000 to get the tape back. And by August 23rd, 2001, 2 days, you'll learn they wanted that tape back in 2 days. Now, the deal that I just told you about for the $140,000, you'll learn was the deal on paper. Freeman is going to tell you that the real deal was something they didn't want memorialized on paper. Kelly had promised to pay Freeman $1 million to get that tape back. Freeman did some investigating, and in short order, he recovered a tape containing Video 2 and Video 3, but not Video 4. Freeman turned that tape into McDavid and Kelly's investigator, and then he entered into negotiations to get the money he had been promised. Freeman eventually met with Brown and Kelly at Kelly's home, and Brown placed a copy of Video 4 into a VCR for Freeman to watch. Kelly asked Freeman where the copy of the tape was that contained Video 4 because what Freeman had brought to them only contained Video 2 and 3. Now remember, Video 2 and 3 depict Kelly engaged in sex acts with Jane, but Video 4 depicts all three of Kelly, Lisa, and Jane having sex. You're going to learn that Freeman hadn't seen Video 4 before Brown popped it into that VCR for him. But after this meeting, Freeman knew what he was looking for. Freeman continued to investigate and learned that Keith had a tape containing Video 2, Video 3, and Video 4. But Keith, he had his own plan for the videos, and I'm going to come to those momentarily. Yeah, okay. Anybody in the chat know who Keith is? Let me swing over here to the chat real quick, see what y'all talking about. Let me see. Tayari, I think I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Shout out. Thanks for pulling up. Let's see. Yes, let me see here. Breaking news. One of the ladies just admitted that it wasn't her on the tape. Did you? Ow! Well, I'm going to tell you right now, Larry Hawkins, and it's on the community tab. On my community tab, Minor One was supposed to be testifying next today, about an hour ago. So I hope she did. You said that she just admitted that it wasn't her on the tape. Oh, sucky now. Okay. That works for me. And trust and believe that direct evidence will be in tomorrow's transcripts, and we're going to have them for you right here. Not just me, but also Just Jazz Only's channel as well. So we are asking y'all, hit the Cash App, y'all. Help us to obtain the transcripts, okay? But let me keep it moving because it's getting good. Now we're talking about Freeman had other plans, and this lead attorney, this AUSA, is about to come to those momentarily. All right. In the meantime, Freeman wanted to get paid. He wanted to get paid for his efforts. And Kelly at this time has only paid him $65,000. $65,000 is less than $140,000 and certainly is less than $1 million. McDavid and Kelly, they kept promising to pay Freeman for returning videos 2 and 3. And you'll learn that Brown eventually paid Freeman $10,000 and $20,000 in cash to keep quiet about returning video 2 and 3, but not until 2008. Brown paid Freeman that cash to keep quiet about video 2 and video 3, while Kelly was on trial for having sex with Jane for video 1 during the trial. And I'll come back to that trial in a minute. The next day, after Brown paid Freeman that cash, McDavid paid Freeman an additional $260,000 in cash to keep quiet about returning video 2 and 3. Now, coming back to Keith in 2007, the year before Kelly's trial, Lisa found out that Keith was shopping the tape around containing video 2, 3, and 4. Kelly's criminal trial was pending at the time, and the trial date was getting closer, and Lisa was concerned that Keith might not actually sell that tape. Lisa didn't want video 4 out in the public domain. So you're going to learn that Lisa got in touch with Kelly. Lisa is going to tell you that she got in touch with Kelly because she believed their interests would be aligned in keeping video 4 a secret and getting it back from Keith. Kelly asked Lisa to come to Chicago to discuss the matter. When Lisa arrived, you'll learn that Kelly asked Lisa to strip down and get into a jacuzzi before Kelly would discuss the matter with her. You'll learn about Lisa bringing up money. Kelly told Lisa that he'd give Lisa $250,000 to split between her and Keith to bring video 2, 3, and 4 back to Kelly. Keith told Lisa to work with McDavid in order to make the arrangements to bring Kelly that tape to Chicago, and Lisa did work with McDavid. Lisa and Keith made multiple trips to Chicago in 2007 to bring back the tape containing video 2, 3, and 4. Lisa and Keith, they met with McDavid and Brown when they came to Chicago. You'll learn that McDavid forced Kisa. I'm reading directly off the transcript, y'all. I don't know what's going on here. She was typing fast. Lisa and Keith to take lie detector tests to make sure they didn't make copies of video 2, video 3, and video 4. When Keith brought the tape containing video 2, video 3, and video 4, Brown told Keith that Keith had brought the golden egg. McDavid put the tape in and he watched video 2, video 3, and video 4. And after McDavid watched it, you'll learn that McDavid gave Keith a hug. And keep in mind, as you're listening to the evidence about Brown putting in a copy of video 4 into the VCR for Freeman and telling Keith that Keith had the golden egg, and McDavid watching video 2 and 3 and 4 and giving Keith a hug, that Brown and McDavid had met Jane in real life before this. They knew who Jane was. McDavid paid Keith $100,000, but McDavid only paid Lisa $80,000. McDavid blamed Lisa for having to pay Keith at all. And you're going to learn that he told Lisa that he would have murked her from the beginning. Oh, for real? Oh, so it's a gangster lean going on. Coming back here to the chat real quick. I'm going to chime in when I get moments too. In between my sign. There's a surgery right now. Hernia surgery. Oh, okay. No problem at all. Girl, we appreciate you showing up. That's all good. You said the best friend of Robert is Keith. Okay, perfect. Keith Calvert, Robert's best friend. Right on. Thank you, man. We appreciate you. And I appreciate y'all for pulling up. I sure do. Okay. So let me reread that real quick. McDavid blamed Lisa for having to pay Keith at all. And you're going to learn that he told Lisa that he would have murked her from the beginning. Come on. Lisa's going to tell you what she interpreted that to mean. And after telling Lisa that he would have murked her, he sent Lisa to meet with Kelly's attorneys to give a statement that Kelly had never had sex with Jane. McDavid told Keith and Lisa that they would get the additional $50,000 to split between them after Kelly's trial in 2008 for having sex with Jane in video one. Now, Kelly's criminal trial, it did begin in 2008, in May of 2008. So just to recap, in 2008, before the trial began, Jane and her family had agreed to side with Kelly. Kelly's father was playing guitar for Kelly in order to support the family. Kelly, McDavid, and Brown had gotten video 2, 3, and 4 back for Kelly and had paid people with knowledge of their existence to keep it quiet. So what the defendants had hoped to accomplish in terms of getting witnesses on their side in gathering and concealing additional evidence that could be used against Kelly, you're going to learn that their plan worked. Jane and her family, they didn't testify in the 2008 trial. Jane is going to tell you that Kelly kept her hidden away, hotels and other places throughout the 2008 criminal trial. Kelly was acquitted in the state case in 2008, but Kelly, McDavid, and Brown, they still had to keep their secrets. McDavid and Brown still had to keep their secrets. They had to keep it a secret that they had successfully covered up Kelly's involvement in having sex with young girls and recording them. They had to cover it up and keep it a secret that they had obstructed the state court criminal proceedings against Kelly so that they wouldn't get in trouble. Kelly, McDavid, and Brown also had to keep their secrets because at this point, Kelly was on notice that law enforcement authorities would investigate and prosecute him for creating and possessing child pornography, some of which, like video 2, 3, and 4, law enforcement hadn't recovered. But Kelly, McDavid, and Brown were also aware that law enforcement could investigate and prosecute them for creating and possessing child pornography that included video 1. You're going to hear this during the trial that some witnesses, including Freeman, Keith, and Lisa, had received immunity as long as they testified truthfully in this case. And Lisa, she actually had immunity from the state and from the federal government during Kelly's 2008 criminal trial. Lisa testified. Now, how does she have immunity and they still allegedly, according to former reports, perjured herself on the stand? That they put her out of the courtroom because she wasn't being truthful then? Okay. So you had immunity, you weren't truthful then while you had immunity, and you have immunity again? Okay. Lisa testified about Kelly during the 2008 trial. Keith and Freeman, they received immunity more recently when they came forward in this case with evidence about video 2, video 3, and video 4. Now, I want to talk to you for a minute about how this trial is going to go. This trial is not complicated in terms of what the issues are. You're going to hear from a number of witnesses, and that's going to make this trial run a bit long. And due to the nature of the charges, there are going to be stretches where you're not hearing all three defendants' names that often. For example, if Nia or Pinky is telling you about how Kells enticed them to engage in sex acts with him, you may not hear McDavid or Brown's name that often, if you hear it at all. And Brown and McDavid, they're not charged in those counts relating to the sex acts with minor girls. Just remember, when you're hearing that, the chronology as I've laid it out for you. The efforts to get the child pornography tapes back and silence witnesses, that came later in time than the sex acts with minor victims. You're going to hear about and you're going to hear from. I now want to talk to you for a moment about the minor victims. They're adult women now. They were young girls at the time, 14, 15, 16, and 17. But now they're women. So I don't want you to be caught off guard when you meet Jane or Nia for the first time. And when you see that they are older now than they were when they were minors and Kelly was having sex with them. Jane, for example, was 13 or 14 years old when Kelly pursued her sexually. She's 37 years old now. I'm going to be honest with you and say that Since they're bringing this to court, the prosecutor should be able to say specifically what age Jane was instead of this random, she was about this age or that age. According to y'all, she's testifying. So why don't you have her specific age? Okay. I want to talk to you for a moment about video 4. You're going to see video 1, video 2, video 3, but you're not going to see video 4 during this trial. As I mentioned, the defendant's efforts to cover up Kell's creation of child pornography, in some ways, they were successful because the defendants managed to get video 4 back. But you're going to hear from witnesses who have seen video 4 and could tell you about it, like Lisa, Keith, and Freeman. You're also going to hear evidence that Brown and Kells watched video 4 in front of Freeman and that McDavid watched it when Keith brought it to McDavid. And Lisa is going to tell you about how video 4 was recorded. And I don't want to sleep on the fact that this prosecutor did just say that Freeman and Keith, didn't he say that they received immunity for this particular trial? So that's pretty interesting. Hold on, let me check these comments real quick. Okay, let me see for Keith. So that's a friend of Robert's, but he got immunity, and we're just not finding that out during opening statements. Let me see here. Oh, you said, I believe the Keith you're speaking of is Keith Morrell. Okay. Yeah, so many people in the mix. Oh, Damon Pryor's friend of Lisa Van Allen. Oh, okay. Plot thickening. Those 3 is connected. Okay. Well, as long as it's not Kell's friend Keith, but okay, we just gonna keep it moving, and the details will unveil themselves. Let me see. All right. You're also going to hear evidence that Brown and Kells watched video 4 in front of Freeman and that McDavid watched it when Keith brought it to McDavid. And Lisa's going to tell you about how video 4 was recorded. May I have the overhead, please? I want to talk to you about the charges in this case, and I summarized them for you at the beginning. But just so you all could see them, I have them summarized for you on this chart here. There are 13 counts in this indictment, and this chart that I'm showing you has all 13 counts in the indictment and the defendant against whom that count is charged. Counts 1 through 5 relate to videos 1, 2, 3, and 4 that I've been talking to you about. Those counts are against Kelly. Count 5 is a conspiracy to obstruct justice count, and a conspiracy is the defendant's efforts to conceal Kell's creation of child pornography and have sex with minor girls. We just talked about that. Count 6 charges all 3 defendants, all 3 of them, with conspiracy to receive child pornography. Videos 2, 3, and 4 that I've been talking to you about. Counts 7 and 8 charge Kells and Durrell with actually receiving child pornography. Video 2, 3, and 4. And counts, oh my goodness, Lord, I can't even, oh man, just 9. Y'all, I cannot read these Roman numerals. So I'm going to bypass that. These other counts, okay, relate to those minor victims that I've been talking to you about. Count 9, that is, count 9. Okay, so it's count 9 through 13. Those relate to those minor victims that I've been talking to you about. Count 9 relates to Kelly enticing Jane and coercing Jane to engage in criminal sexual activity with Kelly. Count 10 relates to Nia. Count, my goodness. I think this is, count 5 relates to Nia. Count 6 relates to Tracy. Damn, count 7 relates to Pinky, who I've talked to you about, and count 8, that relates to Brittany. Now, we as the government, I mentioned this at the start, we have a burden in this case. We have a burden to prove those counts in the indictment beyond a reasonable doubt. That's our burden. And based on the evidence that I've summarized for you, and we're going to summarize for you at the end, we're going to meet this burden. We're going to prove this case to you, all 13 counts in that indictment, beyond a reasonable doubt. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to do it. I'm going to tell you how we're going to prove it. It's going to be those first. It's going to be those victims that I've been talking to you about. They're going to tell you their stories. Jane, Tracy, and Nia, Brittany, and Pinky. They're going to come here. They're going to tell you what happened to them. Another way we're going to prove it, you're going to hear from a clinical psychologist. His name is Daryl Turner, Dr. Daryl Turner. He's going to talk to you about grooming. Grooming. He's going to tell you what grooming is. He's going to talk to you about the grooming behavior of sex offenders against young children. Another thing that Dr. Turner is going to talk to you about is delayed and or partial disclosure by victims, which is to say that victims may not disclose the things that happened to them when they were children until they're adults, if they disclose it at all. Another way we're going to prove it is those witnesses who played a role in gathering those tapes that I just talked to you about, Keith, Chuck Freeman, and Lisa. And another way we're going to prove this case to you are those videos that I mentioned to you at the start. The videos are difficult to watch, but it's important for you all to watch those videos to understand what happened. What happened? The things that Kelly did to Jane that's depicted on those videos. I'm going to talk to you about what they're going to look like when you see them. We're not going to play an hour of child pornography and make you watch that. We're going to play snippets of the videos for you. So I don't want you to think anything other when you see video 1, 2, and 3, and it's not the entire video. We have the entire videos. They'll be admitted into evidence, but when they're published for you to watch, you're going to be watching snippets, much shorter versions of them for you to get a flavor of what they are and what happened, but so you won't have to watch these whole things. Now, at the end of this trial, we're going to come up to you and we're going to summarize this evidence for you again. And based on the evidence that you're going to hear and see during this trial, we're going to ask you to enter a verdict, the only verdict consistent with that evidence, which will be a verdict of guilty on all 13 counts of this indictment. Thank you. All right. Now, you know what, y'all? I've been on here an hour. That's the government's opening statement. It's a different Keith, not Kel's friend. All right, Gigi. Thanks, girl. See, I love the clarity. I appreciate y'all. Not Robert's best friend, Keith. No, Keith Morrell. Okay, perfect. Miss AP, girl, you know, appreciate you being in the chat, providing that clarity. So this is what I'm going to do, y'all. I'm about to change the thumbnail and just leave this video only as the opening statements because that's a lot of information. And so whoever wants to hit the playback, you know, I want them to be able to just to break it all the way down. And then I'm going to come back maybe in the next 15, 20 minutes or so and go through Bonjean's opening because we know Bonjean can get her speak on. But at this time, do y'all have any questions about what the government has said so far? And I'm still in shock of what Larry Hawkins said, that is breaking news. I'm about to just do a quick little let me go to my Twitter real quick and share this screen because I got to see, because I know Jason, our best friend from the Chicago Tribune, I know he has had to tweet it. Hold on, here's Jason Meisner. We're back from lunch. Kels is ready. Who's expected? Jane's testimony. Man, I hope that's true what you heard, Mr. Hawkins. This is 14 minutes ago where it says Jane's testimony is expected to resume after lunch. I'm still dressed in a white blazer. Jane so far has been calmly. Hold on. Yeah, let me share the screen real quick, y'all. Let me make live. We're going to share this together and take a quick look. Since we live and this is breaking news, stand fast a minute, y'all. Here we go. Let's pop this in. Here we go. Okay. All right, let's see. So, Jason Meisner says, dressed in a white blazer with her hair in long braids, Jane has so far been testifying calmly about hundreds of sexual encounters she had with Kelly, beginning when she was 14. Her voice was quiet, and her gaze has stayed on the prosecutor. Huh. Well, Larry Hawkins, where's that breaking news at, boo? Because that sounds like she confirmed it. Let's see here. Let's see what Megan talking about. I I don't know. You know what? Maybe that's something the ops has put out. Maybe the ops put that out. Maybe that's something the ops put out trying to throw us Kel supporters off. Maybe that's what's up. Let me see. Let me hit that stop share. Trying to throw us off real good. That would have been wonderful, though, if that was the case. And maybe so. Maybe I just haven't found it. But Jason Meisner and them, if they didn't have that as breaking news, I don't know about that one. Gigi said, I hope it's true, but I haven't seen anything yet. The only thing I saw was where she said she was 15 when she first had sex with him. The girl on the tape is supposed to be 14. Well, okay. So, yeah. But yeah, y'all, I think it's just going to make it easier. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and just leave this as the government's opening, and then I'm going to come back and do Bonjean's opening, and just to make it easier for the replay gangs when they decide to come through, and just go from there. So y'all be sure to like, share, subscribe if you haven't already. Y'all see the ticker going down. Make a donation and help us to continue to pull these transcripts, because we already got tomorrow's on deck. So as soon as, again, the way the transcripts are running is they're running a day behind. So they're not giving anybody same day transcripts. So me and, again, Just Jazz Only, we're teaming up. We're giving away the transcripts when individuals make, a reasonable size donation, just so that we can make sure that we get them, and Just Jazz Cash App is right there above her beautiful picture. If you feel comfortable dropping it in her Cash App, be sure to do it. If you feel more comfortable dropping it in my Cash App, it's there right there on the ticker. Either way, it's all going towards the transcripts, and we would love your help in helping us to obtain those. If you want a copy of the transcripts, you can get them. Just let us know when you send that reasonably generous donation. Y'all help us do this, okay? If you don't want it, you can tell us too when you send the Cash App that, hey, I'm just supporting y'all and helping y'all out. But either way, that's it. That's the podcast. I appreciate each and every single last one of you. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. Until next time, y'all, we will see ya when we see you. Welcome to the Only Male Cruise Show, the podcast. I am the Only Male Cruise. Be sure to hit the like button, share, subscribe, replay gang, leave a comment. I want to hear from you. Copyright disclaimer regarding fair use is in full effect. The views and opinions expressed in this show, you guessed it, they're all mine. Let's go to work.